Hey everyone, welcome back to NFTs for Newbies. We have a big first today, and that is we interviewed a professional baseball player, like Major League Baseball, America's pastime. So whether you're international or whether you're here domestic in the States, like it's a big deal, right, to get to the professional level. However, what happens if you're at that professional level and you are looking to pursue other kind of entrepreneurial ventures? Some of the best known athletes are big time investors, are looking into companies. Guys like LeBron James has production. He's just got all kinds of things. So athletes are starting to kind of cut their teeth a little bit outside of their professional endeavor. So when we had Kevin Smith on and he was talking to us about the launch of his NFT project, Meta Athletes, I was completely intrigued. Heather was intrigued, and we wanted to kind of dig in a little bit to be like, hey, aren't you supposed to be focusing on baseball? So check out this video and you'll see exactly what we're talking about. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. We are here today with Kevin Smith, not Kevin Smith from Clerks, but Kevin Smith from the Toronto Blue Jays. And unfortunately, at the time of this recording, Major League Baseball is in a lockout. But that's okay because he's got a project on the way that might supplement everything very well, and that's the Meta Athletes NFT. Kevin, welcome to NFTs for Newbies. We are thrilled to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Heather and Rich. I'm excited to get this underway.
You just said before we hit record that you are really spending a lot of time educating right now corporations, athletes, how NFTs can be used. And it's funny because right before I got on this call, I was listening to a video training and they were saying when you have a project, you're not just a creator, you are now an educator. And it's your responsibility to educate the community on how to use NFTs, what it means. It's easier said than done. Education is super, super hard. So if you could give us a little bit of kind of high level overview, what does it look like right now for you as an athlete to also become an educator for the NFT landscape?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I was thankful to kind of be put on this great team with Fanzo and Drew, my co-founder. Kind of got into the NFT space about a year and a half ago. And, you know, before I do anything publicly, I always like to take my time to get educated myself. So it took about 6 or 7 months, just Drew and I, and creating this network and these connections within the space, learning about it, how everything was kind of working. This was about a year and a half ago. So obviously it's way different now, right? But just kind of taking our time and then taking a few months to get educated, mint some projects, see how the whole process worked, trying to learn as much as we can just about the NFT landscape and how it was working with crypto. And then obviously being an athlete, I was just constantly thinking about how it can be used for athletes, for teams, for fans to kind of connect with their teams or their favorite athletes, and kind of how this will reshape, you know, communities going forward. So as we kept learning about stuff, we were going to put out, you know, one of our own collections and just do like a small Kevin Smith collection where I can give back memorabilia or maybe tickets, anything that I can give to my fans or my community that would give them some value. And as I did, and more athletes started asking questions and coming in and wanting to get educated. And so we saw this as a massive opportunity to not only build something either just for one athlete or maybe all athletes, but also we saw a lot of fan bases where athletes were launching their projects and their fans had no idea what was going on, right? And so, like you said, it's a great opportunity for athletes and anybody, you know, of influence to educate people the right way, where you're just dropping a project and no one knows, you know, the first thing about crypto or NFTs, and they're going into these projects and, you know, you get scammed or you lose money and all of a sudden you're out of the space. So we've kind of taken a bigger picture overview of trying to educate just the sports genre as a whole and sports fans, athletes, you know, the communities, the companies that surround, you know, those two entities, and trying to just make it, you know, as simple to get into the space and also making sure that athletes, when they drop their projects, they kind of know what they're getting into.
Yeah, like simplifying entry is everything. That is literally like the number one barrier. After you're in and you've had that first transaction and your heart freaking stops when you're trying to buy something and you're like wondering what the hell's going to happen. It's all fine after that usually. But I kind of have a burning question, and this is like before we even started recording. I'm like, you are in Major League Baseball. The percentage of high school baseball players and college baseball players that make it to the Major League Baseball and succeed is very slim, I'm assuming. Have you ever had any pushback like, dude, you should just be focused on your craft? Like, what the hell is going on? Why are you messing with this NFT stuff? Have you ever gotten any of that?
I think every athlete gets that whenever you step off the field, right? If you do anything other than your sport, there's always some pushback, whether, you know, it's in real estate projects that we're involved in, whether it's being an entrepreneur, whether it's, you know, whatever you're trying to get into, whether you're trying to create your own brand, there's always that pushback, right? But it's always from people that either weren't in your position or weren't athletes or aren't ex-athletes, and they don't really know, what happens after sports, what happens for the rest of your life when you get done playing, right? So a lot of my mentors always say, don't really take advice from people that either haven't been in your position or that you wouldn't take advice from when stuff's going really bad, right? So you try to kind of stick to either people that are already ahead of you, so athletes that have already, been retired or are further on in your career, and say, hey, what would you have done when you were in my position, right? And they all say, I would have focused way more on stuff off the field when I could have, and been in a better position when stuff kind of on the field, you kind of get out of your career and you start moving on to the next part of your life. So there's always going to be that little pushback. But for me, I mean, if you focus on the game too much, it also steers you the wrong way, right? Like you're waking up and you're going to lift and work out for 4 or 5 hours in the morning. Then you get home around 2 p.m., 3 p.m. And if you don't have something productive to do for the rest of the day, you can kind of get yourself in trouble. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. I got one quick thing I just want to mention. A couple years ago, I did some work at the Minnesota Vikings. It was during the football season, and some clients of mine were talking to them. They were like ex-special forces, and I'm a retired Marine. But we were talking to someone in the organization about the transition when people get out of football or retire, and they're just like, they literally don't know what to do. Like this is like a huge problem. Like people are not flexing their entrepreneurial muscles, and it kind of like sets them up for like this weird identity crisis. I'm like, I completely understand what that's like. So I think it's really cool what you're doing, and like you kind of see like the very big picture. Like of course you're blessed with this huge opportunity to play, but at the same time you're like, what else can I do? Like developing your brand and like developing business muscles and all that kind of stuff. I think it's awesome, and I just wanted to say that I've seen some parallels in professional sports, and it's good that you're probably not going to end up that way.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for your service too, man. That's awesome.
Appreciate it.
I can't go much into detail, but I had the pleasure of working with some really high-ranking officials in certain organizations because we were with the Blue Jays. We got to kind of go in and kind of see in depth, and it was awesome.
Nice.
We have so much respect for guys like you. So thanks for your service, man. But that's awesome.
Appreciate it.
I want to just kind of let's play creatively here and kind of stretch our imaginations of what you're talking about, because whether those of you listening are athletes or not, I think the implications of this is transferable across the board to a lot of different industries. When you talk about you have an existing fan base, how can you use NFTs to leverage that? So give me some examples of things that different athletes are doing creatively, I guess from a utility perspective, and to engage with their fans.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we try to put all of our athletes and kind of guide them towards, is more so looking at like the NFT and blockchain technology and kind of using your imagination of like, okay, how can this be used in the future? I don't think the PFP collection of people just buying, NFTs that look cool, that have no utility behind them is going to last, right? You see it now. There's a different animal collection dropping every day. You don't know how to keep up with it. It's a lot that's going on, right? And so we try to push our athletes towards, how can you use this for good, whether it's linking it to a charity, whether it's linking it to some sort of charity event that they do every year. And so making the ticket an NFT instead of just a normal ticket where, you're already getting it digitally. Almost half of these events and half the events that athletes throw, they're already digital tickets that you kind of put on your Apple Wallet and you walk in. So why not kind of tie that to some sort of NFT where they can kind of get, all inclusive access to you throughout the year? Maybe it's, batting practice. Maybe you can, buy 2 season tickets and have all of your NFT holders, sign up for days where they can come and watch you play in person. And we have a lot of athletes that, are just trying to build brands and already have, memorabilia sites, or they already, have their own sweatshirt or t-shirt lines that they're kind of doing off to the side. So tying all that stuff into NFTs and really kind of creating like this super fan base for yourself where you can start to not only have fans on Twitter and Instagram, but you can actually start to control your audiences where you can have all these NFT holders and you can start to give out even more value and content to those people, knowing that they supported you when, maybe before you blew up, they were supporting you on your NFT project, and now you get to give back to them and give them so much value. When you do blow up and you are this big name, now you can, start to use that for good, whether it's with charities, like I said, whether it's with your hometown, whether it's just giving value back to the people that supported you, before you were this big name. So I'm thankful that we have a really good team around us that are always thinking of these creative ways to kind of incorporate, fans with their favorite athletes. And then just been cool to see all the different companies and brands, like you said, that come to us and see what we're doing with athletes and educating athletes. And a lot of these people think that these big brands are all bought in on NFTs and they have these big teams, under their umbrella for this stuff. But really, they're just diving into it like all of us, right? So it doesn't really matter how big your brand is or how big, your Instagram following is, a lot of people, need to start from ground zero, just like everybody else out there listening.
Yep.
This is super interesting because I'm thinking about you being on a team or in a sport or in an environment where massive amounts of people pay to come watch. Not obviously just you, but like teams and all that stuff. So there's a certain element of like pre-existing community, in terms of like a fan base. But in the NFT world, like that doesn't mean like you're set, right? Like you still have to build. So can you talk to me about, because this is interesting. We never had anyone on who has that kind of experience, but like you can't just rest on those laurels. So like, how are you approaching and what have you learned by trying to build a community that's an extension or maybe even separate from what you have from the fans that you have in baseball?
Yeah, it's hard, right? I mean, we always talk at Meta Athletes about how, Web 2 culture or community really doesn't translate to Web 3 right now. There's a lot of big Web 2, as they call it, Web 2 communities that if your fan base doesn't know what an NFT is, or they don't know how to buy one or how to be safe with their crypto wallet, or even how to buy crypto if they're not in the crypto game, right? Like that's going to be very hard to kind of release an NFT project and just expect, 100,000 or even, 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 people to come on board and buy your NFT. And so, that's what a lot of athletes are finding out. I think the problem with the market and the problem with NFTs right now is it is the Wild West, right? Like there's just so much going on and there's so many people that are in your DMs for this project and that project, and they want you to promote this and get on board with this. And so what's hard about that is if you're an athlete and you're somebody with following, every single project wants you to tweet about them, wants you to own one of their NFTs, wants you to do this and that for them. And a lot of it comes with big price tags, right? Like we've turned down, when I say we, just athletes that either I'm in a group chat with or that are part of Meta Athletes, like probably hundreds of thousands of dollars in promotional wealth that people want to give us. And we don't say that to kind of be like, this is the money we could have. But in this space, like if you don't know the founders are, if you don't know the team behind the project, if you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, it's tough to kind of attach your personal brand to it, right? So just educating athletes on that part of it. A lot of athletes kind of get in trouble. And when I say athletes, it could probably be anybody, as far as any company or any influencer, really any person. Getting attached to the wrong project could almost be more detrimental to your personal brand than just not doing anything at all. And so that's kind of the hardest part. And kind of what we're trying to do is just to make sure that, these athletes want to get into the space. They want to, give value to their communities and to their fans. It's just trying to figure out the best way to do that and to make sure they don't get like lost in everything else that's going on or get on the wrong team from the beginning. And then you end up hurting your fan base.
Yeah. How does it work with, I don't even know the right terminology. Just the legal implications of, okay, this is, let me use you as an example. This is the Blue Jays brand. Mm-hmm. How much can you bring that into what you're doing as far as like the media and so forth? What kind of, I guess, friction is there as far as like permission goes for?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, a lot of, every sport, if we're talking about just athletes, every sport has like a players association where, the players union is kind of in charge of getting licenses and getting partnerships with different entities, whether it's NBA Top Shot, whether it's Candy Digital, right? Like all these big companies that are in the NFT game see the value of having almost digital sports cards and kind of bringing that sports card, trading card culture into NFTs and getting sports fans into NFTs. And so thankfully, a lot of our unions have license deals with these companies, whether it's Candy Digital or NBA Top Shot. They might even have equity in these companies. So it's actually to players' advantages to kind of take advantage of that, whether it's, through marketing deals or sponsorships that way. Obviously, you can't be using MLB logos or team names if you're just doing your own personal project, right? So that kind of gets tough. But there's going to be a lot of opportunities for athletes to partner with these bigger brands that already have the tech behind this stuff, that can already launch NFT projects, that might already have launched NFT projects of yourself as digital trading cards where you can then attach utilities to them, right? So we're in talks with a lot of companies like that where, they might have this big NFT brand and they're throwing out all these NFT projects, but they don't really have the player buy-in yet. And it's just kind of educating players on the behind the scenes of what's kind of going on with them with the PA and how this can kind of help you and your fans, by attaching your name to some of this stuff. So it definitely is tough if you want to do it on your own. Like I said, I'm thankful that I'm on a team of a lot of people that are much smarter than me on this stuff, where we can kind of go to them and ask them what the best route is and not try to do it all yourself, because then you kind of can get overwhelmed and get hit with a lot of those legal fees, like you said. So it's just educating education and learning every day, whether it's from the PA, whether it's from these other companies that have licensing agreements, for a name and likeness. And then kind of going back to the athlete and saying, all right, these are kind of our options. We can do this if we partner with this company or that company. Which way do you want to go about it? But at the end of the day, it's just kind of making them aware of their options.
You seem like the type of person who wants to level up, who's into self-improvement, who's into their craft, and who's into exploring other things. And a lot of entrepreneurs are like that. Every year there's an entrepreneur who's like, I'm going to 10x my business, and I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to take this freaking course, and I'm going to this conference and all this other stuff, right? And then you get into mastermind territory, which is obviously a lot more expensive. And there's a detriment to some of these things where maybe you kind of graduate from it, right? You're like, I don't need it anymore, but maybe you're locked in, or maybe there's just different versions, or maybe you're just not feeling the culture, right? Like I can definitely speak to being in a culture. I'm like, this is a little bit too bro-ish for me.
Right.
You guys are trying to do something a little bit special here. Like you're number one, you're educating everyone before you onboard them. But if they are going to be buying any of these Meta Athletes NFTs, in the educational aspect, like what can they expect? And what are you trying to kind of maybe adjust that's a better experience for some of these people who want to participate and have some of that self-improvement in certain areas?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in a special situation just because we're trying to bring NFTs to these athletes and their fan bases who may just be learning about them. Maybe they never heard about them. Maybe the sports fan, maybe they are already in NFT culture, right? So you have a lot of different people. You have, NFT collectors who are also sports fans who kind of see NBA Top Shot and Candy Digital and all these athletes releasing projects, and they kind of understand what's going on. Then you have, the athletes who are kind of, nibbling at this NFT. Sorry. Right down over there.
That was perfect, nibbling. And then he's like, ram.
Yeah. Bevvy's like 20 pounds and she thinks she's this crazy wolf over there. And then you have like just the normal sports fan who maybe has heard of NFTs. They're not in crypto. They're trying to figure out what's all going on. Their favorite athlete is getting into it. So they're like, oh, maybe this is a good time for me to get educated on it, right? So we feel like it's a disservice that a lot of these projects are just kind of launching without any educational piece on anybody that wants to buy the project. And then you run into a lot of scams and a lot of hacks where, people are just trying to buy your project and they're not educated on proper security within NFTs and crypto. And, your community starts losing money. They're looking to you at what's going on and you're just assuming that they know all this stuff. So, that's happening in the NFT culture with people who are already into NFTs. You can only imagine what would happen if you're bringing in fans, you're bringing in athletes, and you're bringing in all these communities that never heard of it, right? So a lot of these athletes don't want to put out a project because they hear about these scams and they hear about these hacks, right? They don't want that to happen to their fan base or to their communities. And so giving them content and giving them, resources where they can educate their fans, they can educate their communities and make them feel safer. We're seeing that a lot of their fans and their communities are coming into this space, more eager to buy their product or other people's products just because they trust that athlete or they trust Meta athletes saying, okay, I went to them and they educated me on stuff before they wanted me to join this community or before they wanted, me to do this and that. So that's kind of where we see, a lot of these communities, not even just athletes, but just in general in the NFT space, it's tough because they're not educating people properly before they launch projects. And then all of a sudden you have these people that want to buy your project. It happens a lot with big brands, with Adidas and all these people coming into the space, right? Like they're not educating Adidas fans on how to buy NFTs or how to be secure with a wallet. And then you have all these fans that go out, they don't get the NFT, they lose a bunch of money, they get hacked, and now all of a sudden, they hate NFTs and they hate the whole culture and stuff. So we kind of take the opposite approach of just trying to educate anyone who wants to come. Fanzo has been awesome with that, with NFT 365. You guys are doing an awesome job with podcasts. So, we either send people to your podcast, we send people to Fanzo's podcast, we send people to podcasts before we even talk about launching their own project or what, this can mean for their brand going forward, just so that they can understand kind of the educational piece of it. And then we can kind of dive deeper after that.
Yeah. People, they come into this space, and I'm one of those people. I was front in line with this, where you're thinking about like investment, like, oh, this is a cool investment opportunity. And then you put on the creator hat and you're like, oh, this is a cool way to make an extra stream of income. What's interesting though, is the reoccurring theme is that, well, your projects, it might sell out, it might do this or that, but it's going to suck at the end of the day if you don't have like a community built underneath it. And dude, community building is such a freaking skill set. And it's not just building it, but also maintaining it and learning how to add value constantly. It's a complete mindset shift. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, like, how are you guys educating on community building and really setting these athletes up to win long term and their holders?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk just about Meta Athletes as a whole, like Rick brought up earlier, we're really utilizing like our resources and our network that we already built, right? Like whether it's myself, whether it's other athletes that are involved with the project, they have marketers or personal branding, opportunities. They have accountants, they have, crypto experts, they have NFT people who have been in the game for 2-3 years, right? Like when you have some sort of influence, whether it's fair or not, you just get access to some people that other people just don't get access to, right? And so we saw that as like a cool opportunity to be able to give that back to our fans and to our communities. And so, with Meta Athletes, we have all these people, like we were talking about earlier, from all these different industries and these thought leaders that want to get into NFTs. And so what we do is we kind of educate them on how it could help their brand and how it can help, their business that they're already, working on or that they've already established. And then in return, they're in this Meta Athletes community and they're able to add value back to, our community and our holders. And so like Rich was saying earlier, the mastermind, and we call it the MetaMind utility behind the Meta Athlete NFT is we're trying to bring all those people together and give them to the community where maybe you didn't have access to this marketer or you didn't have access to this thought leader in this certain industry. And now all of a sudden by owning our token, you can get access to the athlete's access as if you were the athlete, right? So when athletes come in, we educate them and then, they're so thankful and they love the space and they're getting really creative in ways that it could help them. They're also bringing their networks into our community and they're bringing their networks into Meta Athletes. And then we can kind of distribute that out to our holders. And now everyone starts, to get a win-win situation. So that's what's super cool about what the team's doing over at Meta Athletes and what I was so proud about. I didn't want to just drop a project just to drop a project and not really know where it was going, right? We wanted to be something bigger. So adding the educational piece into that, adding the MetaMind utility onto that. And there's so much room for that to grow with all the people that are coming in, all the athletes that we talk to daily that want to bring more value into that. I feel like that's a cool opportunity that I don't think is out there. Like Rich was saying, with masterminds, you could spend $2,000, $3,000, $10,000 on a weekend to go, have a trip and hear people talk, and you're going to do this and that and personal branding. And then it's just over with. And, there's no way to transact that ticket. There's no way to use it again next week, right? With an NFT, you could buy it once and hold on to it for 5 years and get, weekly access to people like that. So that's kind of where we see it going and kind of, what we see is lacking in the NFT space right now is some sort of like utility where you can actually better yourself and you can get value day in and day out just from the community and the network that you can build. And that's kind of what we're trying to build at Meta Athlete.
Awesome. I know Heather's got a
Amazing.
Final question here in a second, or random question from listeners. But real quick, I just wanted to say, where can we find you? So I'm on Instagram right now, Meta Athletes NFT. But if people want to learn a little bit more about what you guys got going on, where would you direct them to go?
Yeah, metaathletesnft.com is the website. Join our Discord. And, Drew, my co-founder, he's always in the Discord. Fanzo's always in the Discord educating people. We have other athletes that are in there just dropping projects or dropping knowledge or dropping, podcasts that they're listening to in there. So that's kind of where everything's going down. We're still ramping up. Like I said, we're not spending, $100,000 on fake marketing and bots and all this stuff to make everything look good. Like I told Drew, we're going to go all organic with it. So the Discord isn't crazy. You can always, reach us at the Discord. And if you want to talk to any of us, just add us in the Discord and we answer questions pretty quickly. We're excited to kind of build this with everybody.
That's awesome. And all of that will be linked in the show notes. Very last question is a random one from a listener. And I'm super excited because this comes from Boydsta at Boydsta over on Twitter and Discord. We see you. You're super active. Thank you so much for sending in this question, Kevin. This is very serious, okay? What is the strangest food you've ever eaten from another country's cuisine?
Wow. That's tough. I have only been out of the country a couple times, and most of them are to Canada to play in Toronto. I went to the DR. We didn't eat anything strange. The problem is when I'm out of the country, it's usually for baseball, so we can't try different things. If you get sick for 3 days, you miss the whole series, right? You can't really do that. In the DR, we really weren't allowed to eat much. We went there for about a week. And a lot of their stuff we just couldn't eat because we were going to get sick, whether it was like the vegetables or just any other food. We didn't have the proper vaccinations and everything like that a couple of years ago. I'm not a big like crazy food guy, so I don't have one of myself, but my fiance has been to Taiwan and tried, it's like a native cricket bowl. And so it's just it's like pasta pastas and crickets, and so she's always trying these cool foods and all this different stuff. So I let her tell all the stories. But for
I've
me,
had crickets before too.
I was gonna say for me, man, nothing crazy. I've been to Canada and I've been to the DR where I just ate kind of rice and beef for a whole week. So I don't have anything crazy, but Taylor's got that down for sure.
Cool. All right, y'all. Well, you heard it here. Everything's linked up in the show notes. Make sure you connect with us over in our Discord. Ask your questions. If you have an episode idea, let us know. We love you. See you soon.